So along this journey of mine, I have found myself extremely connected to helping families, young women, young men along their journey. And I don't think I ever really understood why until I began to unlayer some of the pieces of my own journey. You see, when I was a little girl and unknowingly, I was raised in a very dysfunctional home. And my parents divorced when I was young, and codependency and alcoholism were a large part of that dysfunction. And growing up in that, it became my normal. I didn't know there was a different way about life, but I always had people, mentors and coaches and teachers who really cared about me and my successes and my journey forward. And I'm really grateful looking back now that I had those people in my life, because it's a large part of why I am who I am today. By the grace of God, I got to go to college, which if you would have known my rap story in high school, you would be very shocked. But I got to go to college, and after college, I worked with children in foster care, which motivated me to go to grad school. And in grad school, I learned all about family dynamics, and I graduated with a clinical degree, and I thought I was ready to set the world on fire. But what the reality was my life was about to be set on fire, and I ended up getting married. And my journey, my backstory and relationship was that's a lot of the way I coped with my low self-esteem and my identity is through different long-term unhealthy relationships. And so marriage early was not a shock to my friends or family members. It was probably the next step on my journey. And so you would have thought that we had the perfect family. I had a career, my husband had a career, and we had our first daughter. And just shortly after giving birth to her is when my life started to really unlayer. And I learned very quickly how unhealthy I was, and that unhealth then bred unhealth in other people, and how dysfunctional my marriage was. I ended up in that dysfunction finding out I was unexpectedly pregnant, and so that journey alone was very isolating for me, because I didn't know who I was. I had never really learned who I was. All this other stuff played a role in my life of distracting me from my own brokenness, and so I didn't know what to do, and I really contemplated giving my daughter up for abortion and not understanding what I was really signing up for in terms of life without a husband. At that time, our marriage had become very, very dysfunctional, and we were headed for divorce, and I just didn't know how or what I was going to be able to do. And so all of these things were happening alongside this career that I didn't really understand why I had this burning desire. And suddenly it clicked just then that all of the things that had happened along my journey, the things that were beginning to happen currently for me, were helping me have a heart of compassion and have a deep understanding for trauma, deep understanding for pain, for the people that I was going to be gifted to walk alongside. And so I had the awesome opportunity of working with girls and boys in the teen parent program at our local high school. And crazy story, but I was going through all the pain of my marriage while walking alongside of these teenagers who were waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting on buses with their young children, very little support, were barely able to make ends meet. And here I was complaining about my journey and my life. And that motivated me in a way I had no idea the strength that I would pull from those young men and young women. And I ended up deciding to keep my daughter, and what a blessing she is to my life, and what a blessing she is to our family. And as a result of some of the things I walked through in my marriage, I started to learn about sexual addiction and codependency, and how they really created a nightmare for a lot of people in our country and internationally. And I grew really, really aware of the sex trafficking industry. And I got a call one day from a girlfriend in grad school, and she said, "Hey, we're looking for a therapist. I can't get you off my mind. Would you come work for us?" And what do you know, lo and behold, the second desire of my heart, and I ended up becoming a therapist and working my way up in an organization that walked alongside some of the most broken women I had ever seen, and the trauma, the sexual abuse, and the layered just brokenness that these young women had walked through, and the brokenness of the pimps and the Johns or the buyers and all of people that were connected to the sex trafficking industry. And watching them walk into their freedom was such a gift to me, because I had been given that gift. I had been able to see how the dysfunction in my childhood had created a dysfunction in every other area of my life. And so to be able to see other people experience the freedom I did was absolutely radical. And so I didn't really ever understand abortion in the way that I do now. And when my predecessor came to me and said, "Hey, I really believe God's calling you to Pregnancy Solutions," I looked at her with 4 eyes and said, "What do I know?" And we had partnered together when I was working in the teen parent program, so I knew the great work that Pregnancy Solutions was doing. But I don't know that I understood why I was being connected to that work. I didn't know why I was being understood, but why I was connecting to this work. And quickly realized that I was one of these women. I was facing one of the utmost broken places in my life. My identity, my self-worth, everything that I had shaped my normal life around was being questioned. And I was going to bring another life into this world. I get chills just telling you right now, I suddenly just was awakened to the fact that it's men and women that look like me, men and women that look different than me, and my heart was connected instantly to the work that we get to do here at Pregnancy Solutions, because I was one of those women, and my husband was one of these men, and we just really get it. The pregnancy, the unexpected pregnancy, is not the issue. It's everything else that's blocking their view to the future. I always like to say, and this has been a journey thing for me, but it's always about the root of the issue. It's never about the symptom. Yet our world, and me included, I've lived up here in the symptoms of the silly things, if you really look at it, of the issues with making bills, the issues with scheduling, the issues with arguing with the neighbor, who knows what it is, how this person looked at you in the grocery store. All of that stuff is connected to so much more, and it's connected to the deep stuff that I started sharing with you about my life. It's connected to the childhood that I had and the lack of understanding of who I was created to be and my purpose. And so I'm just grateful that I get to be on this journey, and I know my life is going to continue to unfold, and the onions are going to continue to be unlayered. But for me, it's just an awesome opportunity to be able to serve folks that I can identify with.